We're going to use the same highlight and shadow techniques we did before, right on top of all these. Now, of course, you can tell you don't need to go as aggressive in some areas as others because there's a 3D aspect coming out. But what we do want to do is we want to balance that color and make it match the rest of the face. Because these transfers were more of a warm tone, I'm adding a much more of an aggressive cool tone on top of them to kind of balance out a bit. So because they have so much pink, I'm doing kind of like a greenish. Look straight up. If you think of your color theory, what's going to cancel out and counteract some redness is going to be kind of a greenish tone. So to kind of neutralize it and bring it more to the color of the rest of the face, we just kind of neutralize it with a cool blue-green. You don't want to pull this color beyond the prosthetic because you don't need this little color correction past that. And again, it's muddled on there. And we're not forgetting about the under part. And then we just highlight and shadow the same way we did before. Now that we've started the balance of the color on the prosthetics there, so it blends a little bit more, we're gonna muddle some more around the skin in similar tones, do some of the same painting techniques that we talked about earlier, and then I'll show you the finishing techniques once we've finished our painting here. Close your eyes. You can relax your eyes now, however they're comfortable. Turn this way. Now these transfers also have some wrinkles built into them that you can go ahead and intensify. to give more of a dramatic effect. I'm sort of making sure that I deepen this eye socket a good bit here. And this is just kind of like a gray-brown color that I mixed up and spilled all over myself. It's sort of like a gray-brown because, you know, it's not going to be completely gray, the shadow colors, and it's not going to be completely brown. It's somewhere in this sort of gray range, especially for her skin tone. Shadows that you see naturally are kind of a gray cast. But you wouldn't want to just put straight gray on someone because it's going to take away from the actual kind of life and realism, even though we are kind of taking some of the life out of her face with this makeup technique. We still want to keep it looking realistic. We don't want to take it to a level where it just looks so beyond fake that it's unbelievable. And even though we've got these 3D folds, we want to add a little bit of this shadow back in. Just kind of continues it with the piece to make it look more appropriate. You can add some lines around the mouth. Go ahead and do like a kiss face. You can have them do a kiss face to see where the natural wrinkles would go for that, and then pull some of them in. Since we know we have the latex on her and it's giving more of a dramatic appearance, we can use it to our advantage. So again, just follow those natural wrinkles. You can even use it on the lips too, kind of fill in the natural cracks that you see on the lips. That will add an extra level also. Relax the mouth now. Make sure you let them know when they can relax. Just did was add in all of the shadows and the contours. So those are all the different shadows and contours that we were talking about before. And now we're just going in and adding corresponding highlights to it. So the corresponding highlights, like I was saying earlier, is how you actually make things stand out. So we're making it 3D now. We're giving, instead of it just being that flat, only shadows that you see around, we're giving it life with the contours. So anywhere that we put the shadow, we're going to add some highlight on top of it to bring it forward a bit more. And remember too, this is an extreme version that we're doing for this. So if you're not going this extreme with your look or with your aging, then you don't need to go this extreme with the painting. But we're showing extreme here, so we want to do a little bit more. So we did on the forehead, we had her do different, scrunching her face up in different motions to get the natural shadows and lines where they would be if they existed. And now we're just using the paint techniques that we learned earlier to fill in and intensify a bit. And this is kind of like where we're perfecting also. You can see I'm kind of using this highlight color to kind of thin out some of these lines because they don't need to be so thick. They should be more of a thin line. And also not a perfectly straight line also. You see I'm kind of wiggling it around so that it doesn't look like a straight line. You want it to have dimension and movement to it. So it shouldn't just be straight line across the face. I'm going in, I'm highlighting everywhere we did some contouring. Now this eye bag again has a natural highlight to it because it is a 3D item on top of the skin. So it has a natural highlight to it, but we still want to give some highlight and clean up around the different areas. And then we also continued onto the neck as well, just highlighting and contouring in the areas that you see standing out. So I did some contours in the deeper areas here, and now I'm highlighting around in the high points. I did the same with the sort of wrinkly areas in the skin also. Doing some highlights in these middle areas and the wrinkles that pull down a bit. This is kind of like a pale yellow white color that I'm using. Same as how you don't want to use straight gray to contour. You don't want to use pure white to highlight because it's very aggressive and it's going to look pretty unnatural. So using, cutting that white with a little bit of a yellowy tone, but not too much, because remember, we're trying to make more of a cool undertone to the skin here, but adding a little bit of yellowiness to it will bring a bit more realism into the look, as opposed to straight white. Close your eyes. Gonna highlight up in this direction. Remember, this is going to be a fairly intense highlight because this will help to make the eyes look like they're sagging. So we really want that one to be pretty strong. And another thing that you can do while you're here is with that white tone, we're going to add some stuff to the rest of the hair, but what you can do is just add a couple random white hairs into the eyebrows. You don't need to totally white them out, but a couple white hairs in there will give a little bit of distinction between the gray that we're gonna do later, and just kind of start the aging process with the hair a little bit more. If you're gonna be putting mascara and remaining makeup on the character, then you don't need to worry about the eyelashes, but if you're leaving it alone as is, and not having the mascara or any of that on there, then you would want to put a little bit of this white on the eyelashes, just a teeny tiny bit. You don't want to completely white them out, but adding a little bit there. Look down for me. Just doing a light sporadic paint of the eyelashes will just make them look a little bit more dull and take away some of the life on there. And look up. Paint a little bit on the bottom also. You could also take a, if you wanted to go more aggressive on the eyelashes, you could take those little mascara wands and kind of wiggle it in there and then fluff it into either the eyebrow or the eyelashes, whatever you're working on at that point. You can always use that as an option too. To get that cheek area, I'm going back in with the same dark color paint that we used earlier. And just pulling some of that contour in. Don't forget about the temples. You can do a little bit here. Now again, if you were going to be adding beauty makeup on top of this, you wouldn't have to go in with the purples and the blues that I did around the eyes, because that's more for like the sort of very old sickly look that we're kind of going for here. But if you were doing a more natural version, say it's just someone older and you know they're meant to be pretty, they're not meant to look sick or anything like that, then you wouldn't have to go in and do that. You could just go in and do the traditional makeup that you were going to do on top of there, and you would have the 3D aspect of the transfers and the painting on top of it to give the illusion. So it all depends on what the character you're going for is. Area a little bit more, but with a little bit more of a brown tone here. Look up. So then, once you've finished with the majority of your highlight and shadowing, what you want to do is go ahead and add some stipple texture to the look. So using our stipple brush, we want to just flick a bit of the tone in there. I want to start with a clean cup. Now we're not going to add any more cool tone because we already added a bit of the cool tone in there, so she's cool enough. But what I am going to do is take some of that kind of broken capillary color and just really lightly I want to flick some of that onto the face all over, just to kind of break the tone up a little bit. Close your eyes. You're going to feel sprays on your face. So just give a really light dust. Again, don't forget about the neck. You want to make sure that you get that in there. So this is very similar to a lot of our other makeups that we've done, where this is kind of the finish, where you start to really just break the tone up a bit from what you've already painted, so it doesn't appear to be too flat on the face. can also go in with a bit of like a dusty rose tone just to pull some life in there. You don't want to completely diminish all the life in the face. Keep your eyes closed for me. So it's funny, it's like you neutralize it and then you just sporadically add it back in is kind of the goal, to give it that really nice broken up texture. But you can see how it already helps to blend it and make it appear more natural than where we were before we started doing these stipples. Just adds more tone back into the face because the face isn't flat, it doesn't have one tone to it. So if you keep it flat with one tone, it kind of takes the realism out of it. Lift your chin back. Make sure you don't forget about all the underneath areas. Want to make sure it's all the same. You can relax your neck now. And then we're going to add some age spots. So those age spots are like little brown dots basically. Now to do that, I'm going to use this little doe foot applicator. This kind of works well just to get tiny little taps onto the skin. And these age spots they're like a freckle essentially. So they're going to be kind of like a brown color, which I'm going to make with a kind of like a warm ochre tone and just a tiny little hint of like a burnt orange and a smidge of black, just to deepen it a little bit. You don't want to go full black with these because they're not black in tone. We just want to darken a little bit, but keeping some of that burnt orange in there is going to keep more of the brown undertone that we want. And you also want to go fairly opaque with these. So like, that's a good method to do, where you just kind of tap it to the face. Some of them you can let dry as is if you want to, but keeping it in this sort of really light, sheer, translucent finish is going to be best. They're not exactly the deepest, darkest of colors. Some of them can be, depending on the person, depending on how long they've spent out in the sun, things like that. But if you just kind of tap it away really quickly like that, it helps to blend it and then also make it a little bit more transparent and make it look like it's blending into the skin. But this is another great way to just help break up the tone. And again, you're not always going to do these. It depends. If you're doing beauty makeup, you might do one or two at the end just to give the illusion of it, but you might not even have to do them, or you might not even want to do them. It might not be fitting for the character to have some age spots like this. It just all depends. Tilt your chin back for me. It's just another really good way to break the tone up. Okay. And then, before we add any hair working, close your eyes for me. I'm just gonna give a spray of the final seal, just to kind of give a little bit of moisture back into the look. It also helps to set and blend it a bit better. It kind of pulls a bunch of it together there. And then to finish off the look, what we're gonna do is use this silver gray. So you'll hear it has a ball on it when you shake it, similar to the airbrush colors. You wanna just shake it really well before you go in. And then similar to the latex, it comes with a little brush in there, but you don't want to use a little brush in there. You just want to pour some of it out into a separate area. Now this is more of a silver color, but again, they do make white. They make all kinds of different stuff. So what I'm going to do with a tiny little brush, disposable mascara wand, is just dip it in there. Now because it's liquid, it comes out a lot. So before you start to use this, you just kind of want to take a clean paper towel and pull some of that excess out. Because I'm going to brush this through the eyebrows a bit, and we don't want this to drip into the eye. Close your eyes for me. So if you just pull a bit, again, you don't have to do every single part. It looks a bit too fake if you do every single part of the eyebrow. But if you just blend a bit in there to kind of neutralize some of that natural brown tone that you see, it'll really help to pull everything in. Now you don't want to touch the skin with this. This is only meant to help the hair look a bit more of that silvery color. So don't press too hard when you're doing it, otherwise it'll hit down onto the skin and you got silver skin, which you don't want.